Happy effing Friday, everybody. If a boss has always told you where to be and when to show up, what happens when the boss disappears? Trevor Hicks breaks down the accountability gap that almost knocked him out and how he fixed it. Let's go.
Oh, dang it.
All right, everybody, welcome to today's show. My guest today is Trevor Hicks, a local Florida boy like me. Now I'm adopted, but whatever. We've kind of passed each other in some circles like Owners Club, and looking forward to get to know him a little bit more today. Trevor, why don't you go ahead and kind of give everybody your background and where you came from?
Yeah, Dave, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be on here and get to know you a little bit more and kind of share a little bit of my story. As Dave mentioned, my name is Trevor Hicks. I am born and raised in Central Florida, Hillsborough County, transplanted over towards the Orlando area to attend UCF and attend college. Went on higher education there and got my doctorate in physical therapy. I've been a physical therapist for the past 12 years, full time for about 11 and a half of those. And then last November, had an abrupt end to that career and kind of decided to shift gears a little bit. So excited to hopefully get into that a little bit more. But so most of my background is in healthcare. I've been in real estate for a little over a year and a half, everything from transactional lending, funding to private money lending, as well as my partner and I, our main active income focus is fix and flip right now as well. So
Very cool. How'd you get into healthcare? Like what pushed you in that direction?
yeah, it's a good question. I think going all the way back to, excuse me, senior year of high school, I really connected with a specific teacher who actually taught biology one year and then taught anatomy the next year. And when I took that class, I remember feeling different. I was always into sports, soccer, baseball, football, anything with the ball. I was always into it. So I was always into exercise, staying in shape. And then when I took anatomy, I kind of was like, man, I can learn how the human body works and I can learn how to optimize it and be better at my sport. But better yet, I was always like really big into teaching other people, whatever skill, whatever, saying I had going on. I wanted to share it with people. I didn't want to just do things alone. Um, so I was like, oh, well, cool. I could, go into healthcare. I can help people and I can teach people ways to better help themselves. So at first my thought was, oh, I'm going to go become a doctor. So through college, I went through a couple different phases, everything from I was an engineering major for a year and a half to then I was an anthropology major for a semester for some reason. And then finally founding healthcare. It was just a very basic general science and knew that I could then go on to graduate school because my mentor at the time was just kind of like, just go get a general degree and then you'll go to graduate school, whether you want to go to medical school, chiropractic school, physical therapy, occupational therapy, to be a dentist. You leave the horizon open. So go take all these general courses. So that's what I did. Finished UCF in just over 4 years because of all those changes. And then kind of was like, man, what do I want to go do? So I went and shadowed a physician and hated it because there was in and out of rooms every 5 minutes. There was really in my opinion, no connection, getting to know them a little deeper. And then it was like, okay, see you again in 6 months to a year. Here's XYZ medication and you need to exercise more and lose weight. And that was the extent of it. And I was like, how do I really dig in and pour into these people so that they can become healthier in less than 5 minutes? And that it didn't seem like the right fit. Well, my aunt at the time was an occupational therapist and she had kind of heard this and was like, why don't you come out and shadow me? And I was like, yeah, that's great. She worked at a nursing home facility, kind of transitional care, not your stereotypical nursing home, more of a transitional care, skilled nursing facility, I would say. It had PT, it had OT, and it had speech therapists. So the whole continuum of care from a rehab perspective. She's an occupational therapist. I worked alongside her. I worked alongside a PT that day. And I was like, man, I really love this. So that's where I kind of was in between the two. And I was like, and she even said, she's like, if I was you, I know you, I'd go to PT school over OT school. So I looked into that. I was like, wow, 3 more years of, 9 semesters, a doctorate degree, another 100,000 some in debt. This is what I want to do. But honestly, I just felt so pulled to it and so called to it that it was a no-brainer for me. So I started applying to PT schools, got into UCF, did the next, 3 years there, did my internships, really excelled there. And absolutely, again, I loved every minute of it. I do not regret a second. So yeah, got into healthcare that way and then did everything from treating patients in the hospital, acute care setting, to treating neurological patients and outpatient, then to going on to get my orthopedic specialization and studying for that for the residency, passing that exam, and then becoming a leader and manager for 5 years. I managed my own clinic for orthopedics, and then ultimately stepped aside from clinical care a little after 10 years in practice to take a director role with a nonprofit. And that was actually an operations position. And I basically created a holistic healthcare program from the ground up, everything from the nutrition, the fitness, the behavioral and mental health side of it too. I coordinate all the pieces. I brought people into a cohort, and yeah, so you can say I've done a lot of things in healthcare and kind of come full circle from the practitioner side all the way to the director and operations side. And again, loved every minute of it, but was also in the middle of that kind of looking for something else, looking for alternative means of other income. I made a good living, but I wanted more to retire with. So it's where I ultimately kind of dabbled into real estate, and it kind of found me. So
Yeah, the lack of a personal connection seems to be an unfortunate feature of a lot of Western medicine practice. Yeah, like you're saying, the 5 minutes in the room, and then you're not going to see someone for another 6 months. How can you possibly understand this patient in that amount of time? We were really lucky in the Northwest to have access to a really good naturopath, and just from the time our children were young, and then even into the summer when we were making our trips back out to the West, like one of the stops on that trip was going back and seeing our naturopath. And she just, you know, takes the time to spend it with us and knows all of our family and right, knows all of our history.
they're
Can't do
rare.
that in 5 minutes. Would you say that you said at the end of that, you kind of broke out and started setting up your own stuff. Is that kind of where the spark of entrepreneurship kind of started?
I would say yeah, because when I managed my own clinic, it was part of a bigger healthcare system, Advent Health, which I'm sure you're aware of now being Floridian. They are all over the state and expanding. And it was good. I worked there a little over 9 years, had some of the best work environments I've ever been in, but also some of the worst. I'd say most of my teams throughout the years were fantastic, and really people that wanted to help people. So it wasn't the people that I was working around and the team members that I had or the people that were working for me. A lot of it honestly was patients. You'd have really good patients that would come in and really want to get better, and you'd have other patients that were like, I'm just here because my doctor told me this isn't going to work. Overweight, diabetes, high blood pressure, just not taking any charge of their own health. Everything was somebody else's problem. Somebody else needed to help this and solve this for me. There was no ownership. And honestly, at first, as a healthcare clinician, you treat everybody the same. That's a part of the code that we take is you're going to treat everybody the same as if they were my own. There's no, you know. Anyways, it gets tiring after a while though too of preaching the same thing to the same people. You've got to do this to take care of yourself. There's only so much I can do for you. I can lead you to water. I can't make you drink it. I can't make you, drink the Kool-Aid. But at some point, if you want to get yourself better, you've got to do something. And if you don't, you're going to be in the same place or worse than you were a year ago. I literally just posted that the other day is the worst place you can be a year from now is the same place you are now.
Yeah, I saw that. That was,
And
yep,
it's
definitely
just,
a good message.
it hit me with somebody else's. I stole it. I'm like, I'm reposting this. This is fantastic. It was just for a long time, even as a manager, I expressed to my director, I want more growth. I want more. I want more. I'm a high achiever. I'm okay, owning that. I want more. I'm not the type that can just sit there and get stagnant and be like, yeah, I can sit here and do this for the next 40 years until retirement. No, I'm a lifelong learner. I want more.
Same.
I want more for me. I want more for my family. If I'm not learning, I'm not growing, and I get bored. Honestly, I get bored. And so when I left clinical care, I was looking for a change because of some of those reasons I said, but also some of the leadership and healthcare was changing. It was very much more focused on productivity and how many patients you could see versus you know truly getting the patient better. They want you to get the patient better, but as long as it's done in a timely manner, you could bill a certain amount of units and you were being
Gross.
productive. Productivity was a big topic. And even as a manager, I had to report it weekly for everybody to see how productive each therapist in the clinic was. And it was depressing sometimes because that was like the sole
Yeah.
focus. Like, hey, your productivity wasn't above 90% this week. How can we fix this? How can the leader in me was
Yeah, like,
like,
I helped a human over here. I was less productive in dollars per hour, but
correct.
I helped somebody.
And they encourage you to, share some of those stories too. But they were quick highlights. They were like, all right, you did this, great, but back to the main focus. And it got
Right.
exhausting, man. It really did. From a leadership perspective, hearing it from people and then having to hand down things that sometimes I didn't all the way believe in was tough. Same thing with patient care. I still was treating patients as well as being a manager, and that was fatiguing for the same reasons I said there. So I was open to other things, and then this director role came up of running, working for a nonprofit, and it was somebody I'd worked with before, and the CEO physically came and headhunted me and was like, "I created this position, but I created this position for you to come fill it. I want you here." And I was like, "Wow, thank you." I got an offer I couldn't, turn down. The money was better, the benefits were better, the flexibility of the schedule, which was good. So yeah, I can say, I worked a lot more on my own. I built this program. So that kind of bug of entrepreneurship, I don't know, I didn't know that's what it was then, but yeah, I definitely learned a lot more about myself in that 18 months that I was with that position. And I'm very thankful for it, that taking that leap, because that's what sparked it. Um, I honestly, if you had asked me this a year ago, I mean, it's coming up on a year since I was let go. I would have thought that I would still be there doing this kind of still on the side. I don't know that I'd be in Owners Club right now if that was, if that was that,
Mhm.
just for the sheer time factor. But things happen for reasons that are unbeknownst to us. And I'm just here to kind of go along with his plan. And yeah, I took that as a sign. I had just had surgery. I went in on a Friday, like 2 weeks after surgery, still on crutches, not even able to put weight on my left leg, because I'd had a meniscus repair, and was told that this was going to be my last day there. It was no fault of my own. It was just they were going in a different direction. Um, the CEO that I told you about, she had retired after 30 years, and this new CEO came in, a little bit different agenda, I believe, other than his predecessor, as well as the board. I know it was dictated by the board. It's not only him, but it was. I took that as a it could have been a really negative. And I really remember sitting in my car that day and just being like, man, God, why is this happening to me? I've done everything. I took this step. I got out of clinical practice. I was a tenured clinician there. I was in a good position to move up. Um, but why now? And I remember sitting there asking that and just being like, all right, I've been doing all the right things. I've, gone to church. My faith has grown stronger. And I remember having this sense of peace and being like, all right, I don't know what's going on, but I know that you have a bigger plan for me. So I'm here for it. And I remember going home, talking to my wife, and just kind of being able to deliver it with, I think, a little bit more sense of peace than panic. Um, so that was a big kind of turning moment for us and our family. They gave me enough stipend and healthcare for the rest of the year. I focused on getting my knee healthier and spending time with my family. So Thanksgiving and Christmas was stressful, but also, I mean, it wasn't working. I was just doing rehab every day, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And then January came around. I was like, shoot, I got to do something. So I went back and applied to my old positions. Actually got offered 3 different positions to go back and manage small clinics. And I remember coming home one day and being like, it was right after an interview. My wife's like, how did it go? I'm like, good. Yeah, they offered me the job. And she's like, oh, great. I'm like, yeah, I don't want it. Like, I don't want to go back and do this. It's not where my heart is right now. And I got very fortunate. I ran into actually I started my career with Orlando Health, and my last interview was for Orlando Health, and it was just a general PT practitioner position versus a manager. And I honestly was more excited about that walking out. I knew people there. The director was a classmate of mine, and she was like, this is great. We've been looking for a seasoned clinician. And I actually asked at the end, I was like, I don't want a full time position. I want a part time position, because I'm also doing real estate and I'm also doing photography, helping my wife and things like that. We have other things going on. She's like, okay, great. And I was like, perfect. So I'm still doing that today. I do about 1 to 2 days a week. Some days, some weeks more, some weeks less, but it is very flexible. They kind of match my schedule for what I can give. Um, and on other times, it's still, grinding, trying to find more lending deals and find more fix and flips. So that's where it's gotten me to now, full circle from healthcare to, I'd say, 90% full time entrepreneur now.
And so along this trip, what's been the biggest challenge that you've faced? Or what's been your greatest mistake?
Yeah, yeah, and I know you kind of led into this biggest mistake, and I'll get into. I'm gonna they all lead into a mistake, but I'm going to lead into an even bigger mistake and be pretty vulnerable with you. It has nothing to do with work and entrepreneurship, but I'll get into that. Along this journey, I've learned a lot of, when I worked for somebody else, I had patients that were on the schedule 7 a.m., sometimes 6:30 a.m. every day. So I had to be in the clinic. I had to be up at 5:30. There wasn't an option. It wasn't a choice. Now as an entrepreneur, I have the choice. Nobody gets me out of bed. When my, 7-year-old daughter comes and crawls in bed at 6 a.m. and I'm just about to get up, my alarm just went off and she wants to cuddle. It's like, hmm, you have a decision to make. And I will admit, 99% of the time I cave and that little one curls up with me and I'm like, I'm soaking this in. That's me. Um, but then when they go off to school, it's like, all right, what's the checklist for the day? What is the one thing you need to get done to be productive today? And anything on top, and anything after that is a secondary, and it's a bonus. But what's the one thing you need to get done today? And I love that book, The One Thing, if you haven't read it. Um, but that's honestly the hardest part. Nobody's holding me accountable but me. And normally that's a part where I don't do super well. I need some kind of accountability, whether it be a partner, whether it be, for PT, when I had an appointment, I was paying for it, I went, I showed up. When I didn't, I was, even as a physical therapist, I'm not the best with doing it on my own at home. Unless it's a class, unless it's somebody else who's like, hey, we're going to work out tomorrow. Okay, great. Hey, we're going for a run. Hey, I've got a race to train for. If you give me a race, I'll train all day. If it's just like, it's optional, I'll probably find something else to do, or I'll work on my business. So that has been, I would say, one of the biggest challenges for me. But also never really having to develop a business. I kind of learned operations from other people who had come before me in the healthcare world. Learned how to balance a budget. Learned how to look at EBITDA and balance a P&L and all those things. It was great. It's beautiful because now I'm looking at business buying and things like that. It's definitely it relates. But I always had somebody else to learn from, which thank goodness. Again, I'm an owners club. I meet people like you. I meet people like my partner who have done these things before. And there's no lack of experience out there. You just got to put yourself out there enough to really find it.
That's true. You said earlier that you're a high achiever, right? You're internally driven to achieve, right? I don't know if you've taken your Clifton
Oh yeah,
Strengths assessment
many times.
before, but yeah, I I share that with you that I'm high on the achiever list too. Do you feel like when you're wrestling with this, do you feel guilty or shameful if you don't like check something off every single day?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm big on a checklist, and my wife hates it because I'm like, oh, you got what do you got to do today? I know she hates that question. It's like, what do you got to do today? Um, and I'm like, oh, maybe we should make a checklist. Like, I love it. I've got my checklist right there for the day.
Nicely done.
So it's like you check it off, and it either gets done or it doesn't. And all I have to answer to is myself. But at the same time, like I'm tough on myself. Like I've got a family of four to support, and that's my main driver. That's my main why. Because I want to provide for them a life, that they're proud of, that they're happy, that they can look back on and be like, he did everything he could to provide for us, and he left nothing else out there for question. And that's really what it is. So, um,
All right. So what do you do to overcome that every single day?
it's still a learning process. And honestly, I know we talked about the 90-90 challenge. So Pace just put that out for today's day one.
Day one.
I love
Let's
that kind of
go.
stuff, especially with other people. Because to me now it's like, all right, well, if you fall off and I don't, I'm a high achiever. Like again, like we just talked about, it's a competition. And I see that in my son every day, as bad as it is. He's just like my wife and I. Everything's a competition. Who can race to the front door to unlock it? Like he's running there. Like, can you do this for dad? And it's a race. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like he's me.
I've got my top 10 here for Clifton Strengths and achiever number 2, competition number 3.
Yeah, man.
So internally driven to compete, right? That's the achiever part. And then externally driven to compete. That's
Yeah,
the competition
yeah,
part.
yeah.
It can get rough sometimes.
Oh, for sure. And but so you asked like, how do you do that every day? And I think honestly, remembering what the alternative is. And for me, the alternatives, I mean, it's nice to know that I have a fallback. Like I have a doctorate, I can go back and get a PT position full time anytime, which is great to know. But also, I was there for 10, 11 years, and to me, that's motivation that I don't want to have to do that. It's nice to know that. It's nice that I could go do that. But even the 1 or 2 days that I spend there a week and kind of hear the grumblings and hear the, the W-2 mindset of, oh, here we go again with something. And I'm just like, I'm clocking out. I'm going home. I'm working even harder on my business because it's a reminder of what I don't want to have to go back to full time. Um, so yeah, I'd say those are the biggest internal motivators. I'm not super externally motivated by money. Yeah, I want more of it, but I want more of it so I can do more things, uh, give more things to our church and other people and support, family and things like that have supported me before. I'm not the one that's like, I have to make, a million, $10 million a year so I can, do this. Sure. Do I want a bigger house? Absolutely. Would I be okay if I lived in this house forever? Absolutely. As long as, again, I know my purpose. I know I'm serving, my family and my faith, and kind of keep those forefront in mind. Like, but at the same time, yeah,
Yeah,
do I want to do some cool
it's
stuff and make some more money? Heck yeah.
of course, yeah. Yeah, it's nice to have a fallback, right? You said you can fall back on your doctorate. I'm an engineer by trade, and so I could fall back on that. But yeah, finding the motivation for taking those steps every single day. That's that's certainly a struggle for high achievers. Yeah, bigger house, newer cars, whatever. Yeah, it's very nice, but finding a different purpose that to drive that achievement is critical. Still working on that myself. It is like you said, could I live in this house for the rest of my life? Yes. Um, we had a really great time for a few years when we had RVs, and it just really highlighted how little stuff we actually need. Right? We can in the RV, right? It cleans up fast, it heats up fast, it cools down fast. Um, as long as we had our people all together, right? We've been a traveling family since the kids were little. We homeschooled them so that we could
Right.
travel with them.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah, it's a good reminder that we don't really need stuff, right? We need people around us.
Yep. You got it.
So what? So this is, I mean, this is an ongoing challenge, right? This is kind of getting through the days and making sure that we're achieving and continually growing. What would you tell your past self about getting through these tough times?
Hmm.
It's kind of an awkward way to phrase that
Ah,
question.
that's a good one. And I think I still tell myself, I remind myself of this some now. I used to be I say not money driven, but don't get me wrong, I was very much the budget, checks and balances, you know, got to make sure we have enough to pay this, very much like month to month paying the bills. I think I tell myself, chill out, like everything's going to be okay. Just because you don't have the answer or, don't obsess about it. It just drove me crazy. I know it drove my wife crazy, with that. I'm constantly every effort, every day trying to actively change that perspective of just like everything's going to be okay. And again, you got a fallback plan, you got a plan B. Maybe it's not exactly how you want it to look right now, but he's never let us down before. He's never been late on a mortgage, never been late on this, never been late on that. You keep doing what you're doing, just chill out and remember, put the first thing first. Everything else will come together. So that's a big thing for me for a long time. Again, as a W-2 mindset was like, okay, I know I'm making this month this much in 2 weeks and another in 2 weeks. So I've got this set aside for this month. So if I, have all these bills, we've got this much left to spend. And that was my mindset, was like, we've got this much left to spend because we love to travel. We love to do things with friends. We love to go out, she and I are both pretty much the life of the party. So there was always something to do. It's like, oh, somebody so and so's doing something great. Let's go. Even if it's quick. Oh, we got to go stop and pick this up, bring this, bring that. Buy a present, whatever. And then at the end of the month, I'm like, holy crap, we spent everything down to the penny. Like, and we wouldn't set it aside first. So like the budgeting way of things, I thought I was good with the budget, but I never like paid myself first. Never set stuff aside. Like I had a retirement, I had 401k, and was like, oh, that'd be great. After 10 years with the same company with 401k, had 100 grand to show. I was like, it's not getting me the long run of where I want to
Oh,
be.
it's not.
So it was a kind of a good check for sure of, just chill out. You don't have to have it all figured out, but also at the same time, like I wasn't learning financial literacy. Then I would teach that in school and I would teach that in college, and you kind of have to
Right.
self teach it and learn it. And even like, oh, I'm working with a financial advisor. And when you kind of learn some of it, I'm like, man, I
Right.
honestly, I hate to say it, but I could do some of this a lot better myself and a lot cheaper, and like the management fees, and just put it somewhere safe. Whether it's, and then once I learned real estate, it was like, wow, I could put it somewhere safe and make a better return rather than just relying on the stock market. Yeah, that was
Yeah, that those are common words in this household, spoken by my wife very frequently. We could do more with that. We could do more with that.
love it.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have done anything like college savings or anything like that. Your kids are still young, right?
Yeah, 7 years.
7-ish?
Yeah,
Yeah. So ours my oldest is in her sophomore year of college. So we're kind of in that era of all of the money's going out of the door. Thankfully, she's a studious kid and has scholarships, and that's helped a lot. But it's I was relating to you talking about like just all of this money that's got to go out the door, got to go out the door. I mean, we've been a sole provider family since our firstborn. It's basically 6 months after our firstborn was born. We've been on one income, and yeah, there's definitely some really challenging months. And trying to like this last year, especially since joining Owners Club and everything, trying to shift the mindset from one of scarcity to one of abundance and trusting that things are going to work out has made a big difference. And it's an ongoing daily struggle too. I mean, there's crap comes up when we're doing a couple flips as well. Um, and yeah, just juggling all the things. And when things go sideways, I tend to get pretty clenched up and trying to work through the problem. But apparently my like heart thinks that really tightening up is effective, and it's really not. But
I can relate.
yeah,
Can relate to that for sure. I definitely go into the fight or flight mode and just kind of like, oh gosh, what do we do? What do we do? Like almost a panic. And then that's why
right.
I say sometimes you got to remind, like, take a breath. That panic state is
Yep.
definitely not going to get you out of it. It's not going to help you think. It's not going to be, where your brain activates the best. And instead of trying to solve it right that second, get back to that, mindset that's going to help you solve it, and then solve the problem versus just being like, oh gosh, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And then you make a, poor decision or a rash decision, you know.
Yeah, we were driving up to a real estate meetup last night, and one of the flips is kind of it's been under stop work order, and it's just no end in sight really. Um, so we were driving up there, and Kim looks over at me and is like, "What's wrong? Do you want to go to this thing? You're all weird. Energy's all weird." And I'm like, "No, no, no. I'm just trying to figure out how to get all this crap paid for." And and then later on, after reflecting on it, it was just I realized that um, I was upset because I guess I'm worried as the provider for this family. Like it's on my shoulders, right? I'm the locomotive of this family in many ways. And so yeah, it's worrisome,
It is. And
but
especially, I'd say going from the, oh, I'm getting a paycheck every 2 weeks that's consistent to now, like, how quick can we get this flip done? How quick can we sell it? Because my family's relying on that. Like, yeah, we have reserves that we're living off until that. But if that project, instead of taking 2 months, takes 6 months, that's a big difference. 4 months of bills to pay is a lot. So that active income, those other streams of income coming in are more important than ever now, I guess you could say. And yeah, it's stressful. I can totally relate to that. Again, yeah, I am very fortunate. I have an awesome partner that I had some hard conversation last year of like, hey, we've been that kind of sole provider for a long time. Of like, you got behind me on this, and I thank you for it. I just need some help until I get some of this up and running, and it's more consistent and it's more regular and more in abundance again. Like, it's going to take some time to grind. And she immediately like started going to work and turning back on some of finding other ways to increase her marketing for her, for photography business, and it's been great just to kind of see that spark in her too. So
That's
it's
awesome.
it's been it's been a learning experience for all of us, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of growth these last 6 months, 9 months, and, with the 990 challenge, I'm anxious about it 'cause it's a challenge, and it's the most challenging time of year to undertake this challenge, and I'm also excited to look back in 90 days and see what success has been like.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree
Alright, so
more.
you hinted at, you also are you've moved on to now not moved on completely, but you've started exploring the real estate side of things and doing flips. And I have seen on some of your social media some of the flips as they've been progressing. That's really cool. Where did you find your partner? What are you doing with that? Where are you hoping to go with real estate?
Yeah, I got into real estate, I'd say last April, March-ish. I had a really close friend here that um, owns title companies, and kind of approached her and said, "I know that you, own this business. I know you're in real estate." She was a realtor. She was a past realtor, still owns her license, is an active investor, and basically said, "Will you, you kind of mentor me a little bit?" And she's like, "Yeah, absolutely." But everybody asks me this. Everybody knows how successful I've been, but nobody ever takes action on it. Like I give them literally one book to read, and nobody ever even picks it up. Like, huh, that's not me. Like, try me. Read the first book, read the second book, read the third book, started going to lunches with her, started learning, and was like, okay, cool. And I found, pace, and did the free community for a long time. And then I found a transactional funding kind of side community that was like $80 a month. And I was like, you know what? I've never really put money into this. And I honestly was like, I'll stay in the free community. Like I'll learn all this myself, and I'll partner with people that are there. Like I'll be strategic about it. And when the time's right, if I can afford it, I'll join. So I had the wrong mindset still back then. But joined this transactional lending community. It was great. I started meeting people, doing one-on-ones with people in there, learning how to fund EMD, learning how to fund double closes. I did a handful of those in that community. It was fairly successful, but I hated cold outreach. I hated just cold DMing people. But that's actually how I found my partner. I had done a one-on-one with somebody in our group, knew she was up in Jacksonville. Great, great girl. Was in sub two, was in top tier TC, was in Owners Club last year. So I was like, man, if I can find, I kind of stored it away in the back of my mind. If I ever needed somebody local, that's who I was going to. It was in Jacksonville. Her name's Mandy. Awesome. She's a lending partner of mine now to this day. And so I cold DM'd somebody about needing funds for EMD. And they were like, no, but I need somebody to buy my mother in law's house. And she's going through a really rough divorce. She wants to sell it quick. She wants to sell it cash, no realtors. And I was like, oh, shoot, what do I do? Like, I had learned all this, but I had never put into action. I didn't reach out to people trying to wholesale or anything like that. And honestly, all I did was just build rapport with her through like Facebook DMs, and then we got on a phone call with her and her husband, which was actually that was her mom. They were trying to sell her house. They thought it was worth way more than it was. I basically talked to them as to why it wasn't, and they were like, "Okay, okay, I can see that. Like, it has a pool, but it's not in the best of condition. Needs to be updated. Blah blah blah. This is what homes are selling for, all the way fixed up." And they were like, okay, like we get it. And I was like, okay. So they seemed reasonable. So we did a virtual walkthrough because this house was up in Palm Coast. It's like an hour and a half from me, and did a virtual walkthrough just so I could see more than just the photos. And they were very nice. Okay, so are you going to make us an offer? And I'm like, oh crap, like I need to make these people an offer. And so I anchored them pretty low, and they were like, wow, that's a lot lower than we thought. I thought I'd never hear from them again. And like a couple days later, she comes back and she's like, if you can come up like 5 grand more, my mother-in-law says she'll take it. And I was like, oh crap. Now what do I do?
Yeah, it's getting real.
So I reached out to another member. Shout out to Chris Geddes. He is in sub two. He is up in, I don't know where he is right now. I know he's based out of Montana, but I know he and his wife are traveling a lot. Um, but he actually walked me through getting it under contract, filling out the contract. Um, and yeah, because that's somebody I had funded EMD for his project before he let me in on that. Um, and so he walked me through that. I got it under contract. And I reached back out to Mandy and I was like, hey Mandy, I have this great contract. She's like, wow, that's awesome. But I'm not taking on any more projects right now, especially not down there. And he said, oh shoot, no, I'm dead in the water. She's like, but I'm gonna refer you to this really great guy that does fix and flip in Palm Coast. And I know that's like his main market. I'm like, okay, great. insert Robert. So she introduced me to Robert, and from the very first conversation, we hit it off. I explained to him what I had, and when I told him the price that I had under contract for and where it was, he was like, "You have it for how much?" And I was like, "Uh, 212." And he's like, "Dude, that's fantastic." And I was like, "Oh, like great." I was worried somebody wouldn't buy it. I was like, "So you want to buy this from me?" And he was like, yeah, I mean, I'm either your buyer or I'm your partner, and we can partner up and flip this together." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that was an option." Little did I know he was looking for a partner. He had had a partnership before, it didn't go well, they dissolved it, and he was actively looking for someone to partner with to scale. So I was like, yeah, and keep in mind this time I still had my W-2. This was July of last year when we first finally met in person and walked the house together. And I had gotten it under contract, and or no, we were just still trying to get under contract. We didn't get under contract till September. And yeah, he met me. We walked the house, had coffee, got along really well. And he's like, "Yeah, I mean, I could pay you for this, but like, we could make a lot more money together, and both of us make more money." And I was like, "Okay." Which honestly, he split profits with me, so he made less in the end. He could have given me 5 grand for that, and I would have been over the moon. And it was
Mm.
just proof of concept. Um, and we both ended up making 30 grand on this flip. Whereas, yeah, he could have walked away and made 50, 60K, paid me five. Instead, he was like, "No, I want to split this with you." He did all the work, boots on
Sweet.
the ground. I got fired in the middle of this while we had just listed it on the market. So I'm like, wow, I need this to sell more than ever. It sold right at the end of the year last year. So that was nice. That was a nice little cushion. But then at the end of it, he was like, "Dude, I want to do 8 to 12 more of these next year, and I need a partner. I want to do more of these with you." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So here we are, 8 months later, we've gotten, I believe, 4 more done. We did an ovation, we bought a sub two deal, we did a full flip from like start to finish. My family and I even went up there and did the demo in March. That was probably the coolest experience ever. Um, and then yeah, we have an active one going on right now, much quicker. And then we have an active one about ready to list up in Savannah, Georgia, which should pay off pretty big as well, which is a cool project we're doing with somebody in Owners Club as well named Carrie Roush. So it's been good. It's been good.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, if people wanted to follow along on your journey, where should they go?
I would say social media. I'm very active on Instagram. My handle is Trevor underscore Ryan 7. We're posting constantly every day of whether it be progress, before and after photos, numbers so people can see it, tips and tricks. Because honestly, our ultimate goal, Robert and I, is to partner with more people in Owners Club and Sub 2 and Gator to get them their first flip. Robert is a wealth of knowledge. That's how I've learned everything this past year and a half. And he's a super go giver. He's a leader up in the Northeast in Florida and Sub 2. And he just wants to partner with more people. So if you need money, we've got it. If you need experience, you need to know how to find contractors, you need to know how to underwrite, comp it, know if you're, looking at a good deal. We are here to help. We're down to partner with you. And again, just reach out to me, reach out to Robert. Or if you need money, I also do a lot of private lending as well. Anything from connecting to, hard money lenders. I have a couple of preferred hard money lenders that we go through, as well as private money. We do gap funding as well. So if you need extra money to lower that down payment to get into your flip, we can lower that gap, lower that barrier, and do gap lending for you as well. In second position, that's fine. Depending on the deal, we'll look at anything. So
Hey, also, you have a podcast.
yes, I do. Thank you for reminding me, Dave, which reminds me after this, we got to get you on it. But yeah, I have a fairly newer podcast, about 2, 3 months old now. It's called Thinking Outside the Bank. So everything from creative finance to also just, real life people that necessarily aren't in real estate, but having to think differently, think creatively when, life throws you challenges. So that is on YouTube and on Instagram as well. Again, very easy to find, Thinking Outside the Bank. It's also linked on my Instagram. So if you'd like to be a guest on that, I'd love to have you on, Dave, and all your listeners as well. I'm looking for more people to get on there and share their story.
Thanks for joining me today, Trevor.
Thank you for having me.